I'd like to have Adam Cupp. Oh yeah, there you are. Secretary of our executive committee. He's doing a superb job for us. In fact, if you notice this delicious drinking water, we were sitting at an executive committee meeting one morning, and he talked something about being soaked in liberal tears. I said, that's it. So there's our liberal tears water. Adam, he's going to introduce Bob Latta.
Thank you, Tony. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you a true friend of Putnam County, Congressman Bob Latta. As has been detailed on many occasions, Congressman Latta's roots in Putnam County run very deep. On any given week, Bob can be found crisscrossing our county, going from festivals, parades, ribbon cuttings, the county fair, various sportsmen's events. We share that similarity very much. But Bob has had a busy spring in Congress. Most recently, Bob introduced the Fight Fentanyl Act, which provides the Drug Enforcement Administration the ability to criminalize the manufacture, distribution, or possession of fentanyl-like drugs. And I think we can all agree that's something that needs to go. Additionally, Bob sponsored the Hire the Veteran Health Heroes Act of 2021. This new VA program would help actively recruit medical personnel who are within 1 year of completing their military service to remain in federal health care in departments like Veterans Affairs. So also another very noteworthy endeavor. An ardent supporter of our Second Amendment rights, Bob recently voted against H.R. 8 and H.R. 1446. H.R. 8 would require federal background checks on all gun sales, including private transactions. That can't happen. I am quite certain Bob will have more to say on these recent pieces of legislation, as well as the other state fairs at Capitol Hill. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Congressman Bob Latta.
Well, thanks very much. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks to all the Republicans that are here. He's wearing a button, believe it or not, that's about 1960. I know that button. I had one when I was 4 years old that year wearing it. So, comes from great stock. So thanks very much. Let's have a hand for Tony. You got way away from this. It takes a lot of work to do this. And, I got here, Tony said, well, you can have as much time as you want, but we're not going to do that. The governor wants to get back home. But, Governor, thanks for being with us. Thanks for being in what we call God's country. I know there's a lot of people from other counties here, but everybody from Putnam County, raise your hand. There we go. First, for all of you in the Ottawa-Glandon School District, congratulations for having your boys and girls have such a great season. For everybody from Columbus Grove, the boys had a good season. That was a great season, too. And I tell you, when I'm crisscrossing the district at night, especially during football or basketball season, I've got 106 on so I can listen to the games that are on and see. And where's Keith? Oh, there you are. Sorry about Salina. Because I know listen to some of those games. I'm going, they're both from my district, but boy, they're getting beat. Really appreciate everyone for being here. Just a few things real quick. We're very fortunate to be here because of what Abraham Lincoln did for us. In 1861, when the Civil War started, the United States Capitol building hadn't been completed yet. The dome wasn't done, and people said, you know what we need to do? We need to just put all the money into the war effort. But Lincoln had a vision, and he always had that vision. He said, no, we want to make sure we complete that Capitol building and make sure that freedom is hoisted on top. Because he said, after this war is over, that will symbolize our nation, that Capitol. And he was absolutely correct. Ronald Reagan. How many of you were at the railroad tracks in 1984? Raise those hands. There we go. A lot of people. Waited a long time for the president. I was very fortunate. I was the Reagan-Bush chairman in 1984, and he came through Deschler and Ottawa, and then he was also up in Perrysburg. Chairman Cheney, he was in Lima too, wasn't he? That was the first stop before he came into the front for the 4th up to the 5th. So, Reagan gave us something. And I tell you one thing about Reagan was this. If you ever had an opportunity to meet Ronald Reagan, I was fortunate to meet him several times. When he shook your hand and looked in your eyes, you would have sworn that gentleman knew you your entire life. That's what he was. He was an individual of great character, and what he said went. And he turned this country around. Because, you know, when several years ago, I was over in Berlin, and you can't find even parts of the Berlin Wall now. But remember, it was Reagan that said, and brought the doctrine, making sure that the Soviet Union ended. It was Reagan who said, you know, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And in everybody's lifetime, oh, it's never going to happen. But because of what Ronald Reagan did, what he stood for, that wall's down and brought freedom across Central and Eastern Europe. So when you go to Washington and you see people at the Lincoln Memorial out there at 1 or 2 o'clock from around the world, they're there because they say, this guy right here, Abraham Lincoln, gave us something to believe in, as well as Ronald Reagan. So we have a great party, and we have great things to be proud of. When Tony was talking about Jim Rhodes also said 2 other things. You might remember these things, for all of you can remember. Jim Rhodes also said 2 things: jobs, 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 and also profit's not a dirty word in Ohio. And it was Jim Rhodes who wanted to make sure that we brought jobs so people in this state had jobs. Look at the unemployment rate of this county. Look at the unemployment rate. People ask me beforehand, what are you hearing around your district? All 14 counties, the same thing. We need people back at work. We got people that, you know, we got people out there with small companies, medium-sized companies, saying the same thing. We need people back to work. What do the Democrats want to do? Keep people out of work. They want to become dependent on the government. And this is something, folks, when we look at the United States House of Representatives, we're supposed to lose by, you know, they're saying, oh, the Republicans are going to lose 15, 20 more seats. Well, we are now 5 seats away from taking back the majority. And I want to make sure that my Democrat friends that keep telling me when we're walking back from these crazy votes that we have, saying, you know what, we actually like the way you guys ran this place. And I said, it's very simple. Just get us back in power and we'll run it right. But it's important that we always remember where we come from, and I do. You know, my mom's family came here on the Keeneys and the Stexulies. They settled here in the 1840s. And we're the kids from Miller City. Have they gone home yet? The kids that were serving and cleaning up, I think they've left. Well, the Miller City area is where my mom's family originally came from, the Stexulies, before they came over to Columbus Grove. And then the Keeneys have always been over around Road Q. And so really I had both sets of relatives very, very close. And I never forgot it and never will. Because again, I tell you, I thank this county every election. I thank you before an election for what you've done for me. Because, you know, Tony always keeps a much better track of that percentage I won by in this county. But I can't thank you enough. Because I tell you, when we're running again in 2022, because I want to hold a gavel. I want to make sure we're getting the right bills and laws into place in this country. We've got to make sure, because it's not only for us, it's for our kids. And that's so important. But, you know, one of the things real quick, because Tony went down some of the things that have been happening. Last week, we had a hearing with big tech. That's Google, Facebook, and Twitter. And so, you know, we're seeing what's been going on. And the questions that we had for him, because I'm the ranking Republican on telecommunications, on the subcommittee on energy and commerce. And one of the things that we're looking at is what this is doing to our kids. You know, it's interesting when Zuckerberg's asked how much his kids, but he restricts, they're 3 and 5 years old. He's not letting them sit in front of that computer all day long. But Facebook is pushing things out there for kids all the time. And so, you know, we want to make sure that big tech understands that Section 230 that was put out there to be a sword and a shield to make sure that they can take down obscene material isn't there to take down not only what we're seeing what they're doing with kids, though, but also what they're doing to conservative voices across this country. Because I tell you, when you look at what they've done, how many times do you hear that they're taking down liberals on the internet? What was that again? Never. There you go. So, you know, we want to make sure that you know, there's something out there to protect the new people wanting to get in it, the small guys, But we got to make sure they understand that this is not that they have a carte blanche card out there, that they can do anything they want, and at the same time, taking down Republicans and liberals. You know, as I said a little bit earlier, you know, we're only 5 seats away. But have you following what's going on in Iowa? Anybody following what's going on in Iowa? We won a seat out there by 6 votes. 6 votes. You know what Nancy Pelosi wants to do? Steal that seat and come back and say that they're going to put the Democrat in that lost. They did that once before. Now they're going to try it again. Why? Because Nancy Pelosi knows that she is getting smaller and smaller majority, so they're going to steal a seat that they can put somebody in that they think who's a Democrat that's going to do whatever they tell them to do. This is what we're dealing with just on the other side, but you know, it's been talked about. Let me run down real quick. They want to steal that seat. How many farmers do we have in here tonight? Okay, raise your hands. You know, that's my background from my mom's side. They were farmers. My wife's family, she always has to tell me this, up in Williams County, that they've been on the same family farm since 1833. 1833. They got their deed from Jackson. The Democrats now want to bring back the death tax, which I've always said is the cold hand of government reaching into a warm grave. And they want to go back and take away what they call stepped-up valuation, saying this: we're going to give you $1 million up front, but then we're going to start taxing on that with not what you received it at, but going back to what you got it for. Small businesses, everybody's going to be affected by this. This is things that, as Republicans, we made sure that we got the death tax exemptions up to protect you. But the Democrats are going to turn around and take it from you. I remember being in the state legislature, Jim, when we were serving together, that a Democrat actually said in Ways and Means that nobody has the right to inherit anything. And I said, you know what? I thought we tore down the Berlin Wall. This is what you're dealing with, folks. But real quick, energy. Energy. What we saw happen in this country is transformational. I've had leaders from around the world ask me, how did America do it? That you now can outproduce Saudi Arabia. You can outproduce Russia. You're the #1 gas producers in the world. How did you do it? I said, we put the right laws and regulations in place, and we turned the entrepreneurs loose. Yes. What do they want to do on the other side? Make us dependent on people that don't like us. I can't believe it. You know, you sit down there and listen to this stuff and you think, maybe I'm dreaming. But this is what they're taking you back to. They're taking you back. Again, income taxes. They want to raise taxes. It's because of what President Trump and the Republicans did, driving down rates, brought back the greatest economic recovery we've seen and going on. About 3.5% unemployment rate. I remember my dad telling me as a kid, if you're at 5% unemployment, you're at full unemployment. We're at 3.5. That's Republican policies. H.R. 1 that was talked about. They're trying to make sure that they federalize elections. How many election board officials do we have in here tonight? Thank you for all you do. But I tell you what, you put these Democrats in with this H.R. 1 that they've already passed out of the House. They're going to federalize elections. They're going to make sure that the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission, is no longer bipartisan. They want it partisan so they can get through anything they want. This stuff is scary what they're passing. This is absolutely going on every day down there. We've heard about abortion. You know, the right of the unborn. You know, 63 million babies have been aborted here since Roe versus Wade. 63 million. But what the Democrats are now doing is going in and reaching in and saying, we're going to get rid of the Hyde Amendment, meaning you're going to pay for abortions. Second Amendment. My dad had me out hunting before I could just about walk. And it's always been part of both sides of my family heritage. For my dad growing up when he was a kid in Macomb during the Depression, hunting was a way that they put food on the table. He used to tell me they'd go to the hardware, you could buy a shell for 5 cents. And if they could track a rabbit or a pheasant in the snow, they'd hit it with a shotgun. I always hoped it was unloaded at the time. But what they want to do is make sure that they're taking your rights under the Second Amendment away from you. And as someone not only hunts, but I shoot during the national matches at Camp Perry, it's scary. The debt and the deficit. Years ago when I was on the budget committee, one of the things that I watched was how much are we paying in interest on that debt? And what you're seeing now is we're at $800 billion that will be at in the out, what we call the out year and the 10-year out. But what they're passing right now, that $1.9 trillion partisan boondoggle, we're going to be close to $1 trillion. I want people to think back to Jimmy Carter. Before Ronald Reagan, we had 21.5% interest rates in this country. You couldn't even go to the bank to even get a loan on a car or a mortgage. I remember I was just starting to practice law. We had to write land contracts at the time. The seller had to pray that in 3 years that somebody could go out and get a mortgage so they get that house paid for. That's what they're taking us back to. So, you know, folks, we got a lot of work to do. But I'm going to leave you with this one thought. Benjamin Franklin, when he left the Constitution Convention, and some of you have heard me say this before, but I think it's very worth repeating. You know, people thought in that 4-month period of time from May to September, they didn't know what was going on. They locked the doors. They took an oath of secrecy. They didn't let anybody know what's going on inside. But they worked a small group. Rhode Island didn't even show up. But when they broke and they came out on that September the 17th, a woman came up to him by the name of Powell and said, "Mr. Franklin, what have you given us? A republic or a monarchy?" And Franklin left her with these words: "A republic if you can keep it." You know, our founders, God put them here on this earth at the same time for a reason, to give us this little document of what we call our United States Constitution. It's short, but it's been our guiding principle. And I think it's important that we remember that it's up to every one of us, because those founders were looking over the horizon, and they knew one thing. They had to make sure what they did on that day and during those 4 months before would give us the greatest country on earth with the greatest document that man had ever created. And it's up to us to keep it and pass it on. So folks, we got a lot of work to do. I mean, boy, when I tell you we got a lot of work to do, we got to win. When I was with the president before the election, he said, "Well, what do you think about Ohio?" And I said this. It was brought up. The I-75 corridor. I said, "Mr. President, you've got to go up and down that corridor and win big. That's how you win Ohio." Because if we're going to make sure that we have what we want in this state, and don't forget, we've got to elect, because I always mention this, because with our Supreme Court justices right down in front of me, we have got to get them back in. We're losing our Supreme Court. And does anybody remember the Celebrezze Court? Anybody in here? They drove business out of this state. I remember businesses going into Indiana right across the line to get out of Ohio because what the court was doing. So we got to remember Fisher and DeWine in the next cycle. Because if we don't, the Democrats are in control again. And boy, look out. So Tony, thanks for all you're doing as chair. Thanks to all of my friends and Republicans here. I appreciate your support. I look forward to working with you as we work forward to victory in 2022, because I said I want that gavel. You're right. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Governors, thank you.